Morning students, welcome to B.Sc second year, 4th semester Zoology online class. Today I am going to discuss on histology of stomach. Histology of stomach. So the stomach, stomach is like this. Mammalian stomach, human stomach it is. Can you see this? It's a dilated part of the gastrointestinal tract. It's a dilated portion of the alimentary canal. Can you see this? So this is esophagus. This part is the stomach, dilated part, somewhat sac-like structure, bag-like structure, which is being used for storage of food, then churning of food, mixing up of food with the gastric juice, which is largely composed of HCl, and HCl, you know its importance. This is very important in the digestion of protein. So this stomach, so in this class we are going to study the histological part of the histological organization of stomach. This is anatomy of the stomach. So stomach has different parts. So this part is called cardiac part. This part, cardiac part. This is esophagus. Esophagus is connecting to the stomach, right? And this part is called cardiac part. Okay, and this part is called the fundus, somewhat elevated part. The stomach comes just below the diaphragm. Here diaphragm is present. Diaphragm is a partition, muscular partition between chest cavity and abdominal cavity. Okay, it is somewhat J-shaped structure. This is fundus and this is the body of the stomach, right? And this is pyloric region, pyloric part. Here pyloric sphincter is present, pyloric sphincter. Okay, see. So these are gastric folds. Gastric folds are nothing but rugae. They are known as rugae. Wall of the the stomach is raised longitudinally to form gastric folds or rugae. So pyloric sphincter is this one, pyloric sphincter. You can see here cardiac sphincter is present. Or gastroesophageal sphincter. Okay. So stomach is a dilated portion of digestive tract that lies under the diaphragm. It receives the bolus of the macerated food from the esophagus. Yes, when food is mixed with saliva, it becomes wet and ball-like, and this is called bolus. This bolus is coming to the stomach, passing through esophagus. Mixing and partial digestion of the food occurs in the stomach by its gastric secretions. By its gastric secretions, the food is partially digested in the stomach. Food occurs in the stomach by its gastric secretions and produces a pulpy fluid mixed food called chyme. So chyme is a mixture of gastric juice plus food or bolus that comes from the mouth, right? Pulpy part it is. This is called chyme. The chyme is then passed into the intestine for further digestion and absorption. For further digestion and absorption, that chyme goes to small intestine. Small intestine is further divided into three parts such as duodenum, jejunum and ileum, right? So the lining of stomach doesn't function in an absorption capacity. So the lining of the stomach is not involved in absorption of food, but somehow little part of salts, water, lipids, uh, the carbohydrates, drugs may be absorbed by stomach. Clear? So histology of stomach. Let us discuss the histological part of the stomach. Stomach is divided into three distinct parts depending on the nature of glands present in it. Depending upon the nature of glands present in the wall of stomach, the stomach is divided into how many parts? Three distinct parts. What are those? Cardiac part, pyloric part, fundic part. Cardiac part, pyloric part, and fundic part. What is cardiac part? This is the part near the esophageal orifice, contains cardiac glands. So this part, so where the esophagus is connecting to the stomach, this part is called cardiac part. Here cardiac glands are present. Cardiac glands are present, and here the oblique muscles are present here. Oblique muscles. So this, contraction of these muscles helps in proper mixing up of food with gastric juice. Okay. Next, pyloric part. This is the proximal part to the pyloric sphincter, contains pyloric glands. Proximal part of the pyloric sphincter. So here. So this is pyloric sphincter. In front of this, here, pyloric region. This part is pyloric region. Can you see it? This is pyloric region. And remaining part from here to here, this is called fundic part. Actually, this is the body of the stomach. This is fundus. So depending upon type of glands present in these regions, the stomach part is divided into three parts. Next, fundic part. It is the largest part of the stomach and is situated between the cardiac and pyloric part. Cardiac and pyloric part, and contains the fundic glands, gastric glands. The wall of stomach is thick and internally raised into prominent longitudinal folds. Internally, wall of the stomach is raised into longitudinal folds called rugae. So they disappear when stomach is distended with food. When the stomach is filled with food, these disappear. When food is not in the stomach, these appear. The wall of the stomach. What are these? These are called rugae. The wall of the stomach is composed of four distinct layers or coats. So wall of the stomach is composed of four distinct layers. Four distinct layers are known as coats. They are from outside are the serosa. From outside, serosa, muscularis externa, submucosa, and mucosa. Here you can see. This is the outermost layer, serosa. Next to this one is muscularis externa. From here to here, muscularis externa, and from here to here, submucosa, and from here to here, mucosa part. So thus, wall of the stomach, this is the wall of the stomach. Wall of the stomach is having four distinct layers. From exterior to interior, serosa, muscularis externa, submucosa, and mucosa. Okay. So next part, serosa. Let us discuss these layers one by one in detail. Serosa. So it is the outermost layer of stomach wall which overlies muscularis externa. It is present above the muscularis externa. It consists of a layer of simple squamous epithelium. It is made up of what? Simple squamous epithelium. So this serosa layer is having squamous epithelial cells, squamous cells. Therefore, it is simple squamous epithelium. It is present outside the stomach, outermost layer it is. Next to this one is muscularis externa. Can you see this? Muscularis externa. So muscularis externa having the muscles, smooth muscles, and these muscles are arranged in different directions. So these are longitudinal muscles. These are longitudinal muscles. Lengthwise these are present. They are called as longitudinal muscles. And here circular muscles. These are circular muscles. Circular muscles. You can see here, circular muscles. And above this, oblique muscles are present. Can you see here? Oblique muscles. So all these muscles together form muscularis externa. Externa means exterior part, exteriorly existing muscular layer. One more muscular layer is here. Can you see here? Muscularis mucosa or muscularis interna. This is called as muscularis interna. This muscularis interna is present in submucosa. Submucosa, right? Submucosa. So, okay, the contraction of longitudinal muscles. Contraction of these muscles, what happens, the length of the stomach gets reduced. It becomes shortened. The lumen is, volume of the stomach is increased. Volume of the stomach is internal volume is increased because of the contraction of longitudinal muscles. Okay. Then contraction of circular muscles. Contraction of circular muscles extends the length of the stomach. Stomach length increases so that the food is thoroughly mixed with gastric juice. So contraction of circular muscles reduces the internal volume of the stomach. Longitudinal muscle contraction increases the internal volume of the stomach. Clear? Then oblique muscles. Oblique muscles, they help in churning of the food. Churning movement, squeezing movement of the stomach helps in proper mixing up of food with gastric secretions, gastric secretion or gastric juice. Okay, so this is about muscularis externa. Okay, so serosa is the outermost layer of stomach wall which overlies muscularis externa. It consists of a layer of simple squamous epithelium and a small amount of underlying connective tissue. Muscularis externa. Underlying the serosa is the muscularis externa formed of 3 layers. The outer layer is of longitudinal, middle of circular and inner of oblique muscles. Yes, muscles are arranged in 3 patterns: longitudinal, circular, oblique. Longitudinal muscles run longitudinally and form thick longitudinal muscle layer. By their contraction, the stomach shortens and volume of its lumen is widened. Okay, circular layer consists of circular fibers are comparatively thinner and longitudinal muscles fiber. Comparatively thinner than longitudinal muscle fibers. By the contraction of these muscles, the stomach increases in size but its lumen is reduced. Okay, oblique fibers are best developed in cardiac stomach. Yes, in the cardiac part of the stomach, these oblique muscles are best developed. This layer is responsible for creating the motion that churns and physically breaks down the food. The contraction of all these layers produce the peristaltic movements. Yes, peristaltic movement is very important in the movement of food through alimentary canal. For the proper movement of the food through the alimentary canal, peristaltic movement of the alimentary canal is important. That peristaltic movement is developed by the contraction of all these muscles. Nerves and ganglia form the orbax flexus. Nerves and ganglia that are present in the muscularis externa form orbax flexus which provides innervations of the muscle layers. Muscle layers are controlled by orbax flexus. Next layer is, so far two layers are completed. Outermost layer is serosa. Next to this one is muscularis externa. And third layer is submucosa. It's a thick layer being formed of dense connective tissue that contains fat cells, blood vessels, lymphoid vessels, and nerve fibers and ganglia which form submucosal flexus. Flexus innervates vessels of submucosa and smooth muscles of muscularis mucosa. So this layer, this is submucosa. Submucosa is made up of what? Blood vessels, lymph vessels, nerves, connective tissues. All these come here. Muscularis mucosa, all come under submucosa. So formed of single layer, submucosa, flexus innervates vessels, and okay. Then mucosa. So mucosa, it is the inner lining of the stomach formed of single layer of cells. It is produced into numerous rugae. Mucosa consists of an epithelium, the lamina propria underneath, and a thin bit of smooth muscles called the muscularis mucosa. So muscularis mucosa also comes under mucosa, not in the submucosa. Muscularis mucosa. So muscularis, it is a thin layer consisting of outer longitudinal and inner circular fibers. The contraction of this layer compresses the gastric glands present in the mucosa. So gastric glands are present in the mucosal region. They are squeezed by the contraction of these muscles. Okay. Then lamina propria is nothing but connective tissue part present inside the rugae. It is relatively thin and restricted to the very limited spaces surrounding the gastric pits and glands. So this part is called lamina propria. Lamina propria. Here you can see gastric glands. Their squeezing helped by the contraction of muscularis mucosa present here. So it is relatively thin and restricted to a very limited spaces surrounding the gastric pits and glands. The stoma is composed largely of reticular fibers with associated fibroblast and smooth muscle cells. Other components include cells of immune system, example lymphocytes, plasma cells, macrophages, and some eosinophils. All these come under immune system. So immunity. So if at all any microorganisms, pathological microorganisms come along the food, they are killed with the help of these cells. Lymphocytes, plasma cells. Plasma cells produce antibodies. Lymphocytes, there are two types of lymphocytes, B lymphocytes, T lymphocytes. They help in killing the foreign bodies. Macrophages, these are monocytes. Macrophages are neutrophils. So some eosinophils are also there. These are types of what? WBCs, white blood cells. That's about lamina propria. Next layer is, outermost layer is, innermost layer is surface epithelium. The surface epithelium of gastric mucosa lines gastric pits and covers the free surface of ridges. It comprises simple columnar cells which are called surface mucous cells. Mucous cells vary slightly according to the state of their activity and contain granules in the free supranuclear part. The mucous cells secrete mucus which coats their surface, lubricates and protects it from the digestive action of the gastric juice. So this is surface epithelium. Can you see here? Surface epithelium. This surface epithelium covers internal surface of the stomach and pits, gastric pits also. They contain somewhat columnar cells. Some of them are, mucus secreting cells are there, oxyntic cells. So the mucous cells that are present in the surface epithelial layer, epithelium, that they produce mucus, and that mucus forms a layer outside the surface epithelium which protects the stomach wall from the HCl, hydrochloric acid. So this is about TS of mammalian stomach. This structure is the TS of mammalian stomach. So we discussed 4 different layers that are present in the wall of stomach: serosa, muscularis externa, submucosa and mucosa. Next, coming to gastric glands. So gastric pit, it is, this part is having this layer, surface epithelium has gastric glands. Glandular cells are present. Okay, they secrete their secretions into the pit, and from pit it is released to the exterior in the lumen of the stomach. Okay, and this part is lamina propria. Just below the surface epithelium. This gap is filled with connective tissue, blood vessels, lymphatic vessels, nerves, nerve flexes, all this come here. So gastric glands. The epithelium of the stomach forms deep pits called fundic or axanthic for gastric glands. Gastric glands are simple branched tubular glands that extend from the bottom of the gastric pits to the muscularis mucosa. Each gastric gland has a narrow and long neck segment and a shorter and a wider base. So base is wider. At the top, the neck is narrow. So each gastric gland has a narrow and long neck segment and a shorter and wider base. different types of cells are at different locations down the pits. The cells at the base of these pits are chief cells or peptic cells. At the base, chief cells or peptic cells are present. So these are present at the base of the gastric pits, chief cells. And these chief cells, what they do? They secrete pepsinogen. You can see here, secrete pepsinogen and gastric lipase. Chief cells. These are at the basal part of the gastric gland. Next. So chief cells are also called as peptic cells, responsible for the production of pepsinogen and an inactive precursor for pepsin, which degrades proteins. For protein digestion, it is essential. Pepsinogen is converted into pepsin in presence of HCl. That you know it. Pepsin is essential for the digestion of protein in stomach. Actually, protein digestion begins from stomach onwards. Carbohydrate digestion has already started. Carbohydrate digestion has already started in the mouth. But here in the stomach, carbohydrate digestion doesn't occur. The secretion of pepsinogen prevents self-digestion of the stomach cells. Further, up the pits, parietal cells or oxantic cells produce gastric acid, which kills most of the bacteria in food, stimulates hunger, activates pepsinogen into pepsin. So at the top region, so parietal cells are present. These are parietal cells. At the basal region, chief cells are present. As you go towards the surface of the gastric pit, the parietal cells are present. Parietal cells secrete hydrochloric acid and intrinsic factor. Hydrochloric acid importance, you know it. HCl kills bacteria. It loosens the protein fibers present in the food. Protein digestion is helped by HCl. HCl converts pepsinogen into pepsin, prorenin into renin. Okay, and the medium of the food is converted into acidic because of the presence of HCl. Okay, near the top of the pits, closest to the contents of the stomach, there are mucus producing cells called goblet cells that help protect the stomach from self digestion. So here mucous cells are present. These are mucous cells. So they protect the surface of the stomach from HCl. Okay, next. Okay, next, the enteroendocrine cells occur at any level of the fundic gland and secrete gastrin hormone in lamina propria. So gastrin stimulates the secretion of HCl by parietal cells. So parietal cells secrete HCl, and that HCl secretion is stimulated by gastrin hormone. So gastrin hormone is secreted by the enteroendocrine cells present in the lamina propria. Okay. So next, functions of stomach. So it acts as a reservoir of food. It produces gastric juice, helps in protein digestion. It causes churning and onward movement of food in ungulates. Ungulates means the cattle like that. Cattle, buffalo, all these are ungulates. They are cud chewing. Cud chewing mammals are called ungulates. In stomach, absorption takes place to limited degree. Normally, glucose, water, and alcohol are absorbed here. ARE or absorbed here. There should be ARE, not OR. Orientation of undesirable swallowing, then killing of some bacteria and pathogens by HCl. So all these are functions. Next one is assignment. So there are 4 assignments. Number 1 is write the names of layers of stomach wall. Second one, what are rugae? Third one, what are chief cells? Fourth one is draw a neat label diagram of CS of mammalian stomach. So these are the assignments on this topic. Thank you.